I am 67 years old and I have never taken a prescription medication in my life, not once. No blood pressure pill, no cholesterol medication, no diabetes management, no antidepressant, no sleeping pill, no painkiller beyond what grows in my garden. No pill of any kind prescribed by any doctor for any condition, because in 67 years of living in this body, no doctor has found a condition that required one. I want to be careful here, because I know what you are thinking. You are thinking this is genetics. You are thinking I was born lucky, born into a body that simply does not break down the way other bodies do, and that nothing I eat or do has anything to do with it. I understand why you think that. It is a comfortable thought. It means the gap between my health and yours is not something you could have closed. It means there is nothing you could have done differently and nothing you can do now. It removes the weight of responsibility and replaces it with the lightness of fate. But I have watched too many people to believe that. I have watched my brother Hiroshi leave this village at 22 and come back at 55 on 2 medications with a diabetes diagnosis and a body that looked 20 years older than mine. We were born 3 years apart, same parents, same childhood kitchen, same food until he left. 20 years of different choices did that, not genetics. I have watched the younger generation here in Ogimi, the ones who stopped eating the way their parents ate, who started buying convenience food, who moved toward the modern diet. I have watched their health change in ways that the older generation's health has not changed. Same island, same water, same air, different food, different outcomes. Genetics does not explain what I have watched in this village over 67 years. Choices explain it. Specifically, the 5 things I do every single day that I am going to tell you about right now. These are not supplements. They are not products. They are not things you order from a website or pick up at a pharmacy. They are habits, ways of living that have been passed down in this village for so long that nobody here thinks of them as health practices. They are just life, the way life is lived here. And they are the reason I am 67 years old with the blood work of a much younger man and not a single prescription to my name. The first thing is the morning tea. Every morning before I eat, before I speak to anyone, before I do anything else, I sit on the back step of my house facing the garden and I drink 1 cup of warm turmeric tea. Warm water, half a teaspoon of turmeric powder, a pinch of black pepper, and sometimes a small piece of fresh ginger from the garden. That is all. It takes 5 minutes. I have done it every single morning for as long as I can remember. The black pepper matters. Most people do not know this. Curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, is not easily absorbed by the body on its own. Piperine, the compound in black pepper, increases the absorption of curcumin by up to 2,000%. 2,000. Without the pepper, you are getting a fraction of the benefit. My mother always added pepper. I asked her once why. She said her mother had always done it. She did not know the science. She just knew the habit. What turmeric does in the body over years and decades of daily consumption is something the research is still catching up to. But what I know from watching the people in this village who have drunk this tea their whole lives versus the people who have not, is that the ones who drink it stay cleaner inside. Their inflammation stays low. Their blood stays clear. Their joints keep working. Their minds stay sharp. Inflammation is the root of almost every chronic disease that is filling Western hospitals right now. Heart disease is inflammatory. Type 2 diabetes is inflammatory. Alzheimer's is inflammatory. Many cancers are driven by chronic inflammation. The drugs prescribed for these conditions are, many of them, attempting to manage inflammation after it has already caused serious damage. Turmeric, consumed every day for decades, keeps the inflammation from building to that level in the first place. This is not a cure. This is prevention. And prevention done daily for a lifetime is worth more than any cure developed after the damage is done. 1 cup every morning before anything else. Start tomorrow. The second thing is the garden. I spend between 2 and 4 hours in my garden every single day, morning and afternoon, depending on what the season requires. I weed, I water, I harvest, I repair, I plant. I squat down close to the soil and stand back up dozens of times every morning. I carry things. I pull things. I press my hands into the earth. This is my exercise. I have never been to a gym. There is no gym in this village that I am aware of. I have never owned a piece of exercise equipment. I have never run for the purpose of running or lifted a weight for the purpose of lifting it. But I have worked this garden every single day, and my body at 67 works the way it works because of it. The research on what is called non-exercise physical activity, movement that is woven into daily life rather than separated from it as a distinct activity, is striking. People who move constantly throughout the day, even at low intensity, have significantly better health outcomes than people who sit all day and then exercise intensely for 1 hour. The body was not designed to be still for 8 hours and then suddenly asked to perform. It was designed to move constantly, moderately, purposefully, the way a farmer moves. Gardening specifically does something beyond the physical movement. The contact with soil, the actual physical touching of earth, exposes the body to a microorganism called Mycobacterium vaccae that research has shown triggers the release of serotonin in the brain. People who garden regularly have lower rates of depression and anxiety than people who do not. This is not a metaphor. This is biology. The soil is doing something to the brain chemistry of the person whose hands are in it. I have never taken an antidepressant. I have buried my wife. I have buried my father. I have watched friends leave this village one by one over the years. I have had grief that I thought at times would not pass. And through all of it, I kept putting my hands in the soil every morning. I do not know if that is why I am still standing, but I believe it helped. If you have any outdoor space at all, a garden, a pot on a balcony, a shared plot in a community space, put your hands in the earth. Grow something. It does not have to be much. My garden started as a few rows of sweet potato and bitter melon. 50 years later, it is what keeps me alive. The third thing is the miso soup. I eat miso soup every single morning without exception. Real miso, fermented soybean paste that has been sitting in a ceramic pot for months, not the instant powder. Kombu seaweed, tofu, whatever vegetable is ready in the garden. A bowl of this every morning has been the foundation of my diet my entire life. Miso is a fermented food, and fermented foods do something in the gut that I believe is one of the most important and most overlooked factors in long-term health. They feed and diversify the community of bacteria living in the digestive system. They introduce beneficial microorganisms that support digestion, support the immune system, support the production of neurotransmitters that the brain needs to function properly. The gut is sometimes called the second brain. This is not a poetic description, it is a functional one. The gut contains more neurons than the spinal cord. It produces more serotonin than the brain does. It communicates directly with the brain through the vagus nerve, sending signals that influence mood, cognition, inflammation levels, and immune response. When the gut bacteria are healthy, everything downstream of them tends to be healthier. When they are disrupted by antibiotics, by processed food, by the absence of fermented foods and dietary fiber, the effects ripple outward into every system of the body. The people of this village have been eating fermented miso every single morning for generations. Their gut microbiomes have been continuously fed and supported in ways that the Western gut simply has not. I believe this is a significant part, of why the immune systems here work the way they work, why the inflammatory diseases that plague the Western world are rarer here, why the mind stays sharper here longer. Make miso soup tomorrow morning. Real miso from a Japanese grocery store or health food store. The kind that needs to be refrigerated, the kind that is alive. A tablespoon in hot water with whatever you have available. That is all it needs to be at the beginning. The fourth thing is the walk. I walk everywhere. I have never owned a car. I cycle when the distance is too far to walk comfortably. Every trip to the market, every visit to my neighbor, every errand in this village, I walk. I am not walking for exercise. I am walking because it is how I get from here to there. The walking is incidental to the living. But the body does not know the difference between walking for exercise and walking because the market is a kilometer away. The heart gets stronger either way. The blood pressure stays lower either way. The bones stay denser either way. The science on walking is cleaner and more consistent than the science on almost any other single health intervention. 30 minutes of walking per day reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease significantly. It reduces the risk of type 2 diabetes. It reduces the risk of certain cancers. It reduces the risk of depression. It maintains bone density in ways that prevent the fractures that kill so many elderly people. Not from the fall itself, but from the complications that follow. A man who falls and breaks his hip at 80 has a roughly 1 in 4 chance of dying within a year. A man whose bones are dense enough from a lifetime of walking is far less likely to break anything in that fall. I have never broken a bone as an adult. I work on uneven ground every day. I carry things. I move on rough paths in all weather. My bones hold because they have been asked to hold, consistently, every single day for 67 years. You do not need a gym membership. You do not need expensive shoes or a fitness tracker or a program designed by an expert. You need to walk every day to somewhere real, for a real reason if possible, because walking with purpose feels different in the body than walking in circles. Walk to the market, walk to a neighbor, walk to somewhere you are going to drive. Your body will remember how to do the rest. The fifth thing is the moai. This is the one that surprises people when I tell them. They expect me to name a food or a practice. They do not expect me to name a group of people. My moai is 7 men. We range in age from 58 to 84. We have been meeting every week since our early 30s. We drink tea together. We eat. We talk about the garden and the fishing and our families, and occasionally about things that are heavier than that: illness, loss, fear, the things men do not usually say out loud. We argue, we laugh, we sit in comfortable silence when there is nothing to say. I have shown up for these men through marriages and divorces and deaths and diagnoses and the ordinary, long, slow grief of watching people you love grow old. They have shown up for me. When Fumiko died, the 6 of them were at my door the morning after. They stayed most of that day. They brought food. They said very little. They were simply there. The research on social connection and health is as strong as almost any research I have encountered. Loneliness, chronic social isolation, elevates cortisol, the stress hormone, to levels that are genuinely dangerous over time. Chronically elevated cortisol suppresses the immune system, accelerates the aging of cells, damages the hippocampus, raises blood pressure, promotes inflammation. Lonely people die younger. They get sick more often. They recover more slowly when they do get sick. They develop dementia earlier. The opposite is also true. People with strong social bonds, who have people who know them, who would notice their absence, who share meals and conversation regularly, live longer, stay healthier, maintain cognitive function later into old age. Not slightly longer, significantly longer. The effect size of social connection on longevity is comparable to the effect of not smoking. I have never smoked, but even if I had, I believe my moai would have given me back some of those years. You do not need to call it a moai. You need 5 people who know your name and would notice if you disappeared. You need a meal shared regularly, a conversation that goes past the surface, a commitment that holds even when it is inconvenient. If you do not have that, building it is as important as anything else I have told you today. More important, perhaps, than any single food or habit. The pills that Western medicine prescribes for the diseases of aging are real medicine, doing real work for people who need them. I am not telling you to throw away your prescriptions. I am not a doctor and I am not qualified to say that. What I am saying is that I am 67 years old and I have never needed one. And the reason I have come to understand more clearly the older I get is not that I am lucky. It is that I have been doing these 5 things every single day for most of my life. Turmeric tea before sunrise, 2 hours in the garden every morning, miso soup for breakfast, walking everywhere I need to go. 7 men who have sat across from me every week for 30 years. These things are not complicated. They are not expensive. They do not require a prescription or a program or a product. They require only that you begin and that you continue. My father did all 5 of these things. He died at 94, still gardening, still walking to the market, still sitting with his own moai, until the group had shrunk to just 2 old men who had outlasted everyone else. He never took a pill either. In his last year, a doctor from the city came to Ogimi to do a study on the elderly population here. He examined my father when my father was 91. He looked at the results and told my father he was in remarkable condition for his age. My father looked at him and said, "This is just what happens when you live properly." The doctor wrote something down. My father went back to his garden. That is the thing about the people here who live this way. They do not think of themselves as doing something remarkable. They are not following a health protocol or optimizing their biology or doing intermittent anything. They are simply living the way their parents lived, eating the food their parents grew, moving through the day the way humans moved through days for thousands of years before someone invented a chair that you sit in for 8 hours and a screen that you stare at for 4 more. The modern world has built an enormous and expensive infrastructure around fixing the damage that the modern world causes. There are pills for the inflammation that the modern diet creates. There are procedures for the arteries that the modern diet clogs. There are medications for the blood pressure that the modern lifestyle elevates, and the blood sugar that the modern diet destabilizes, and the mood disorders that the modern isolation produces. I am not against medicine. Medicine has saved people I love. But I am saying that the gap between needing none of it and needing all of it is not as large or as inevitable as most people have been led to believe. The gap is largely made of daily choices, small ones, the kind that do not feel significant on any given Tuesday, but that accumulate over decades into either a body that works or a body that is being managed. I think about that every morning when I sit on the back step with my turmeric tea, facing the garden in the quiet before the day begins. I think about the things my father gave me without ever explaining them, the habits he modeled without ever calling them habits, the life he lived without ever describing it as a health practice. He was just living. The same way his father had lived, the same way I am living now, and I intend to keep living this way for a long time yet. Nuchi Gusui. Food is medicine. Movement is medicine. Community is medicine. Purpose is medicine. Every day you have is a day to build the health you want to be living in 20 years from now. Start with the tea tomorrow morning. Just the tea. Warm water, turmeric, black pepper. 5 minutes on a step or a chair before the day begins. That is all. One thing. Then next week add the wok. Then the miso. Then find your people. Then find your garden. Not all at once. One thing at a time. The way a garden goes. Slowly, steadily, one season building on the last. Your body is waiting for you to give it what it needs. It has been waiting patiently for a long time. Start today. Nuchi Gusui.